Hello and welcome everyone to Copy and Paste, the clean and family-friendly Reddit reading podcast. This is the second episode of r/PettyRevenge, where the reward is always satisfactory. Thank you for joining me. Okay, let's get started. The first post was made by a user whose account is suspended. I was working for a company that paid me to travel to a job in another city. This was done by going into town and getting a coach for the company puts on. I would waste 3 to 4 hours a day unpaid to go into town and get home after a 9-hour shift. I asked to be paid to just drive my own car from home and go to work. They said no, and if I didn't like it, they would replace me. I called the bluff, but they hung the phone up on me. I started to panic and frantically started looking for another job. I applied for everything I could even remotely be capable of doing, but got nowhere. I called back my employer and she laughed at me down the phone. I was gutted, but I just need to get a night's sleep and come out fighting fresh in the morning. I woke up to a phone call from a new employer, eagerly offering me an interview. I said yes without even thinking. As soon as I hung up on the call, I got another, then another. 5 job offers I got in total. A few days later, I had accepted a job working for a delivery company, better pay and benefits. I took a picture of me in my new uniform and sent it to my old employer with the caption, "Thanks for replacing me. I replaced you with a better employer." This petty revenge happened only a few minutes ago and required very little effort on my part. I make pizza for my family, and about every 2 weeks, 1 pizza for me, 1 for my brother, 1 for my parents. I enjoy my pizza with a decent amount of sauce, but because I always decorate my pizza first, I never add as much as I want to do so that I know there's enough for everyone. Well, the last few times I've noticed that we've been leaving a whole half jar afterwards when it's too late to add any more to my pizza, and is inevitably thrown out after a week of no one eating it. So today I decided that I would sauce my pizza to my heart's content. My brother adding his normal sauce intake, then I added mine with a few more spoonfuls than normal. Cue yelling and screaming from all 3 family members. Yes, yelling and screaming over sauce, about how selfish I was for not leaving enough for my parents. I note to them that there is still half a jar and we never use it always, but this fell on deaf ears. One thing to note, my family is infamously proud and stubborn. I do not say this in admiration. Living among them, you learn how to manipulate these quirks to your advantage. I did not appreciate being aggressively yelled at, especially because sauce of all things. I knew all I needed to do to get back at them was to say one sentence. One sentence and it would all be over. I don't get why you're upset. There is no way you're going to use up the rest of that sauce. My mother looks me dead in the eye as she dumps the whole jar on the pizza. She has fallen for the trap. I smirk. By the time they're done spraying the sauce, it's just one thick sea of red, taunting them in their hubris. I see the horror on their faces. They know it's way too much, they'll know, but they'll never admit it. When it comes out of the oven, the sauce is overflowed all over the pan. Lord only knows what the oven looks like. Their first slice with the pizza cutter sends sauce flying in all directions. You can hear the great pizza god laugh. And the piece de resistance, my father picked up the first slice and the cheese sliding right off in cartoonish fashion. They stare in silent anger, trapped in their own saucy prison of their own making. As I type this, my parents are eating this scalding tomato sauce soup that contains some soggy dough and cheese, while I sit victoriously eating my delicious and perfectly sauced pizza. That was so good. You didn't have to do anything. You just say a sentence and they do the revenge for you. Our next post is made by user/RumBunBun. Years ago, I was browsing through a rack of shirts in a woman's discount clothing store. I was the only customer in there when a Karen walked in. I heard Karen tell the clerk she'd come back for a size small denim dress she'd seen a couple days ago. It buttoned down the front and had flowers embroidered around the hem. The clerk said if there were any left, they would be in the dress section, but instead of going to the dress area, Karen made a beeline for the same rack I was looking at. standing right beside me, blocking my access to the clothes that I hadn't yet looked at. Now this was a good-sized store, but she had to look at the rack I was on. Sigh. Since I moved on to the jeans, Karen decided to follow me to jeans, again, standing right beside me and reaching in front of me to grab a pair to try on. When I moved over to dress pants, she followed, and again to jewelry. I hope I'm not in your way, I said to her sarcastically. Oh, no, you're fine, she said, oblivious to my tone, as she reached right in front of my face and snatched a pair of earrings off the rack in front of me. I moved to the clearance area, so naturally Karen did too. Finally, my shadow and I headed to dresses. Suddenly, hanging high on the far side wall behind a short black dress, I saw an inch of denim with embroidered flowers peeking out behind it. I walked over, pulled the black dress down, and lo and behold, the holy grail, the ugly denim dress, in size small. I heard Karen gasp and saw her moving in toward me from the corner of my eye when she was a mere 3 or 4 feet away. Reaching towards the denim dress, I reached out and snatched it up and waltzed over to the checkout counter. She followed and had the nerve to ask me, aren't you even going to try that on? I want to buy it if you don't want it. I just smiled sweetly and said I'd take my chances, since I had 60 days to return it. As I left, I could hear her whining to the clerk that she asked about the dress first, and it was unfair. She didn't even try it on. I returned the dress to another store location across town shortly before the return period was over. Definitely petty. Maybe if you'd gone over and looked in the dress area instead of shadowing my every move, you would have scored the ugly denim dress, Karen. Our next post is made by user/snoocats8791. When I was 13 years old, I went to Mexico for the first time with my mom and grandma. We picked up an aunt of mine on the way to our destination. When our bus stopped at a rest stop, I had to use the bathroom. There was a man in front of the bathrooms, charging people a quarter for a piece of toilet paper. I was baffled, but we needed the toilet paper, so we had to pay. After we were outside waiting, and I was with my aunt, she was smoking a cigarette, and the man came up to her and asked if he can have one. In Spanish and full attitude, I told him, for 1 quarter. He laughed and coughed up the quarter. After he left, my aunt also laughed and gave me the quarter. Our last post is made by user/Gwalfboi. So, this girl in my class is a very popular student, even though she's a bit dim. Because of her popularity, she bullies others for the fun of it. She decided one day that I was the next victim because of my general fascination with prehistoric life. She deemed it too childish for a teenager and thought I deserved to be bullied. For the next 2 weeks, she made my life hell. Or so she thought. She tried to spread lies about me, like I'm getting into fights, doing drugs, etc. The only problem was that I too am a bit of a popular kid. Nowhere near her level, but I have a pretty big friend group. She tried to tell this to quite a few of these people, who she didn't know knew me. They immediately knew that she was talking BS. Now this girl also got free money a few days prior to the story, and hadn't spent it yet. And don't ask how she got it, I don't know. My school has a rule where you must report dodgy activities that might be linked to the buying and selling of drugs. So I bet your butt I reported her for this, and the outcome of this was so much better than I thought. It turns out she was actually buying tobacco and cannabis illegally and was excluded from our school. Because of her being underage, she didn't get into too much trouble with the police, but her parents did get in touch with the school, saying that they can permanently exclude her if they wish, because of how disappointed they were. Moral of the story, don't piss of nuts. And, well, that was it for today. Thank you for joining me. To listen to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or one of many more platforms, or to visit any of my socials, click the Linktree link in the description. And feel free to send me an audio message. Just go to anchor.fm/copy-and-paste/message. Or just go into the description and click on the link. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.